Is coffee making you fat? Well, it can certainly contribute to weight gain or a lack of weight loss or a lack of results. Disrupted sleep, hormone imbalance, energy imbalance, you name it. And I'm going to get into the why behind all this. So it's a very common thing. I went through this for years. It was more just of a convenience thing for me. I just started going into intermittent fasting because it was easy for me to get up, train, work with clients, do my work, raise my son, and not have to cook breakfast. Instead, I would just have coffee. Sometimes I would throw some collagen in there, collagen peptides. But mainly I just had coffee, and I would have upwards of half to three quarters of a pot of coffee before I had breakfast. So I would typically get up at 4 or 5 a.m. and then not eat until 10, 11, or even around lunch. And I did this for years, and it was very convenient. And I was able to maintain somewhat of physique. Can't say right, but I was starting to find myself starting to get sluggish, my sleep getting disrupted, and ultimately my compliance to workouts and just nutrition in general just kind of went down a little bit. And I just noticed it was affecting my results, and that gave me a red light to look into this a lot more. So I discovered something called leptin resistance, and this is really a big part of my practice now, where we focus on a really the master hormone that really regulates your body's ability to control its appetite and thus control weight gain, control body composition, your energy, and ultimately your drive, focus, and attention to your health. Because if you're more compliant, you're more energized, and your appetite is more in tune, if you're sleeping better, if you're more in alignment hormonally and energetically, then you're going to get better results. You're going to be more compliant to your workouts, your nutrition, and everything else around that. And I often say a good night leads to a good day, and a good day leads to a good night. So we need to really look at this holistically. And if you're skipping breakfast and just having coffee, or I got questions on what about black tea, what about, I would say anything caffeinated, really anything caffeinated is really a red flag here. So coffee, tea that's caffeinated is going to be something that applies here. So what happens when you wake up in the morning? Typically, if things are in tune, and most people are in line with this, cortisol, and a hormone that's produced in your adrenal glands, it elevates and it gets you up and alive. And when you wake up, typically around sunrise, cortisol starts to rise, and that gets you going, that gets your blood sugar regulated, and it helps to just get energy going. And when we skip breakfast, your body continues to produce cortisol at an elevated level. Now, we all know cortisol is associated with stress, and stress tends to be a bad thing, and I don't want to put cortisol as a bad thing. It's a natural hormone that is absolutely essential to life and your energy. But in a world that we're exposed to artificial light all the time, we're indoors, we're stressed from work, we're stressed from life, we're stressed from business, whatever it may be, these things elevate cortisol throughout the day and cause elevation at night, and then improper eating, improper meal timing when you shouldn't eat, throws off your rhythm of hormones that lead to a good night of rest, a good rest and recovery to be able to get back to a strong day the next day. And when these things are off, it starts to throw off your day, and you start making poor meal choices. Your appetite is off, so you're eating more. You're not feeling fulfilled or satiated, so you eat more. That causes weight gain. That causes energy dysregulation, and all these things just get out of whack. So, drinking coffee first thing in the morning, while elevated cortisol just naturally happens when you wake up, and you drink coffee and caffeine, it elevates and continues to just throw fuel on the fire to increase cortisol even more. And then that causes a whole cascade of issues that occur later at night. It suppresses melatonin, it suppresses that leptin hormone specifically, and that's why I mentioned it. So leptin is really a hormone. It's held in fat cells. So when you're trying to metabolize fat, you have leptin that gets released when you eat. And after leptin is released, it's supposed to dock in the hypothalamus in your brain, which is really the master gland to all hormones. And if it cannot bind or connect to that hypothalamus due to elevated cortisol, it is not going to give your body the proper signals to say that you're full, and it's not going to give your body the proper signals of saying how much fat storage you have on you. And that's the most important thing I want you to walk away from here, is if you have improper or leptin resistance, and you can't have the leptin dock in the hypothalamus at night, because it is a circadian hormone. It is regulated by sleep. It's regulated by your your rhythm of hormones throughout the day and night. If it is suppressed or limited, it's resistant, your body can't dock it to the hypothalamus here, then your body doesn't know how much fat you have on you. It doesn't know how to regulate your appetite the next day, which leads to improper nutrition, improper energy management, and then poor food choices, poor consistency. And you can paint the picture here. You do that over months and years, you can see how it's hard to lose weight. You can see how it's hard to maintain a consistent habit and way of thinking and being to get your results ultimately and keep those results. So leptin resistance is connected to cortisol secretion and elevated cortisol secretion throughout the day, and intermittent fasting and caffeine intake, coffee and any tea with caffeine is going to just throw fuel on the fire to elevate and keep that cortisol elevated, really when it doesn't need to be naturally elevated beyond, or it doesn't need to be elevated beyond its natural means. So when you get sunlight first thing in the morning, it naturally elevates. Then you eat healthy, nutritious food, good breakfast in the morning. It helps to lower that cortisol and keep it at a healthy level so that you're not overproducing. That regulates your energy, that regulates your appetite, that regulates all these things that ultimately have a cascade to making the right choices, doing the right things to ultimately get the results you want. So, to recap, skipping breakfast first thing in the morning elevates cortisol as it's already elevated just from waking up, and then adding caffeine to the mix is elevating your cortisol even further, which is leading to leptin resistance, which is your body's regulator and really the scanner to let the body know how much energy you have, how much fat you have, and how much you really need to adjust and adapt your appetite the next day. So if you have poor sleep patterns, if you have high and elevated, chronically elevated cortisol, you're going to create a cascade of issues that lead to poor leptin docking in the hypothalamus, which leads to poor energy management the next day, which leads to all the issues that we try to fight with willpower and all these things. So this is why I don't go into calories when it comes to nutrition. I focus on hormones, I focus on meal timing, I focus on the other things that ultimately regulate how much food you should be taking and what you should be taking in, because there's other things at play here. It's not just willpower, it's hormones, it's the metabolism, it's circadian rhythm, and how you live, what you do, and how you eat, and when you eat, ultimately regulate the equation of calories in, calories out, energy in, energy out, so that you don't even have to pay attention to those things. Right? You can just focus on the key things that are ultimately going to drive the results in your life. So I hope this gave you more clarity on understanding of why coffee can impair your results and how to really optimize it by start eating first thing in the morning. Train your appetite to eat when you wake up. And that's going to help curb the need and necessity for coffee because you're replacing it with something else, but also push that coffee off a little bit longer, and it's going to take a little bit of willpower at first, but you're going to be able to do it over time, get a little more consistent with it, and you're going to be optimizing your circadian rhythm to make better food choices the next day. So that's it for the Brew or True. Does coffee sabotage your weight loss? Well, I believe the answer is yes for many, because if you've been intermittent fasting for a very long time, if you have been yo-yo dieting, if you have been struggling with losing weight, trying everything under the sun, keto, carnivore, and all these other things, they're not bad. Intermittent fasting is not bad, but when it's used too long, it becomes abused, and it starts to lose its fire, its spark, its benefits over time. We're meant to utilize them when we need them. There's a systematic way that you can utilize all those things. Not saying they're bad inherently, but we've gotten really religious with only one type of way of eating. And really it's all about creating balance in your life. So all that being said, if you want to find out more ways to personalize your nutrition, I have a program called Metabolic Mastery. If you want to find out more about it, I'll leave the link in the detail description below. You can click on that, see what it's all about, and if it's something you want to find out more, you can go ahead and schedule a call with me. Hopefully this video served you well. Let me know if you get any good value out of this, any questions that you have, reach out to me. Happy to help. Thanks for watching.